So I want to introduce you guys to some of my friends, people that have been in the front line, some for a very long time, some for not such a long time. And different than the panel I moderated yesterday where I stopped them from talking about their projects and we were just human, I'm going to let them talk quickly about their projects in the beginning just so we can get really weird afterwards. Everybody that's mic'd up can come up to the stage. I can't see anymore because the lights are intense. I can be the asshole that was this. Can't see anything over there. Bao, Andre, come over. Cool. Everybody comfy?
Yeah.
Should I sit here, actually?
You should sit whatever you want. Yeah.
No, stay away from alcohol.
Like everybody else.
This is the Assange DAO corner? No.
My ears are very delicate and small. Once I dated an ear throat doctor and she said, your ear looks exactly like the ears in the book. I was like, okay, whatever works for you, babe. Why? No, not enough mics? Yeah. So grab the hand one, sit front row. We try to get Bao to join. Bao is Raid Guild, DAO House, has seen and done lots of weird stuff, also the creator of the Wordsmiths. Bao, next time. So guys, with you, I'm happy to have you here, and we have Ale Borda in spirit from 50 Years Capital. Something happened. I'm happy to have you guys over. This is Zug, this is Stellar Magnet, and this is Andre. You guys want to introduce yourselves real quick?
Sure. I guess I'm...
Just start with you, that's fine.
I'm Andre. I'm a co-founder of the design studio called Deep Work, Web3 native. Built it over the last 4 years, and before that I worked on about like 100 different projects, open source teams, enterprise, and designed products.
Hi, I'm Stellar Magnet. I guess I didn't really introduce myself in my last talk, but I've been in the DAO ecosystem since 2017. Kind of actually got started off participating in Giveth social coding circle, and then that emerged to being a part of communities like Aragon and then Moloch DAO, and then recently I helped with Assange DAO, which ran on Juicebox, and now I'm creating a new DAO called Black Sky, which takes some of my intentions for getting into the DAO ecosystem, which was creating a decentralized space program. But Black Sky is not just going to be about space anymore. That's something that has transformed over the years. And then I'm also contributing to, within the DarkFi community, there's a team emerging to build an anonymous DAO toolkit. So I'm part of that project that is not like a fully... it's a project that's still at the early stages of development, but that's all my DAO stuff.
Well, I'm Zug. I am part of the Juicebox DAO. We are a crowdfunding and treasury management protocol run through the Juicebox DAO. The Juicebox protocol is run through the Juicebox DAO. I'm community manager, currently looking into improving governance, improving onboarding. Different from most people I've seen talking on stage. I've only been into the space, had my first transactions about a year ago, so the total opposite of OG, learning lots, watching you guys talk about so much stuff, and well, excited to talk about wild ideas in DAOs.
Cool, and in case you never stumbled upon me, my name is Elko. I accidentally founded the Wildest, and it has subsequently ate my life. And since then, we've done a few events that are focused on creating the notion of a connective rather than a collective. It's an in-between space organization that's meant to serve as a narrative defense mechanism for the DAOverse. So we perform hardcore gossiping, intelligence services, narrative design, and sanity checks. The whole point, I really like the way this panel formed, somewhere between accidental and intentionally. I think Zug represents an archetype of DAO maker that has recently joined, has made huge waves on the pond, but is somewhat only half aware of the toils of the people that came before, and is probably wondering, why are these old people so grumpy? What's their trauma and scar tissue that has accumulated? So he's here for his benefit to inform him that the shit that we lived over the last 4 years has hurt. Now, Stellar is here to be the true embodiment of the archetype of somebody who has been yielding a very large machete at a very deep jungle and taking no bullshit, which I deeply appreciate because it was paid in personal price for that, and I know and I respect that, and I will defend that always. And Andre is here because he's the most appropriate person in the world. Look at him. He's adorable. But no one in the Web3 space has run more applied design sprints on Web3 problems than him and Deep Work in general. I had the pleasure to work with them because I am probably personality-wise the mix of these two here. I had to quit Deep Work when I was informed I couldn't drink wine while running workshops, and that was, you know, that's a DAO. You should just go like do your other stuff. Look, it needs to be entertaining, Andre. And I think this conversation is going to be super good. And I would like to start by saying I'm super excited about Black Sky DAO and DarkFi in general. More specifically, I think that the big important next move is the encounter of privacy and DAOs. And I would like to provoke all of you, if that doesn't feel like the biggest emergency you've ever heard of, is because you're not thinking deep enough about maybe you're blinded by the sun and you need to look at the moon for a little bit. So I invite you all to become good eclipse punks and think deeper, right? And I would like to start the panel by, since I brought the room down, by asking what, in terms of scenario, let's say bear market, regulation, current developments, mega trends, etc. What are you most afraid of currently? What is your doomsday scenario that you wouldn't like to see manifest?
That's a rough one. There's a lot of things that can.
But it can only get better from here, Andre.
Well, it depends on how you see it. I think that.
No, it's about how you see it.
No, well, I see two different trajectories. One of them is from the legacy economy, which is falling apart, and where people don't have a lot of access to new technologies. And there's another trajectory, which is kind of what we are on in some space. Which I think is evolving into a more optimistic and positive direction, utilizing technologies that we are all involved in. And I think that we're kind of at slowly getting to the lowering phase of the legacy economy. Like, we're just at the start of something that is going to get really, really bad pretty soon. And also, we're just at the start of the other thing, which is kind of going from the bottom. So I think we're still there's going to be a point where it's going to be pretty bad, but then it's going to get better. I don't know what it's going to look like. In terms of practical scenarios, there's just, I mean, obviously there's like hyperinflation and a recession going on. Normal jobs haven't started firing yet because that's something that's a lagging indicator for a recession that takes about like 4 months on average to actually be visible in the economy. And so what are we going to do with all these people that are going to be jobless? So we need, like, I know we are building infrastructures and we're building opportunities for people to work, but we're not there yet. We need better onboarding. We need like a lot of better coordination, a lot better reputation tools. And yeah, I mean, I can probably go into a deep rabbit hole on that.
We can do a couple of rounds. Let them complete, let other shovels start digging the hole, and then you can bring your laser excavator.
What is the doomsday scenario is continuing to operate the way we're operating, continuing to allow the space to be captured by people who don't really care about the ideals of like the crypto, like early crypto anarchy ideals. Just like continuing to be captured, not doing about it, continuing to be surveilled. So we are living in the doomsday scenario. Got to change it.
I think my scenario goes kind of similar. It's like we're not in a good situation in how human coordination works right now. We have not applied a broad, good model, and we now have a chance to shift models at some manners. And the doomsday scenario is not like getting to 5-10 years from now, and blockchain and crypto are similar for my grandma to Facebook. Like they'll think of the same company if they think of crypto. That's doomsday scenario. In 10 years, my grandmother thinks crypto is Facebook.
Yeah, so I was just like doing like a more of a local context doomsday scenario to be more something we can talk about as a community versus like the world at large. But it, will radiate out if it's like what do we want to radiate out? If it might just be the same thing. Yeah, if decentralized social becomes just like not really decentralized or not really governed by the people.
Yeah, I had feelings of doomsday when somebody said, like, we can't be a DAO, we don't have a token. And I was like, oh, shit. But then I was like, fuck Juicebox. And then I met him.
That was a very good conversation.
And then I met Zu, and I realized that the project's so much more. And that this new wave of DAO folk, independently of eventual misconceptions, they're doing incredibly vibrant tech work that is becoming part of the composable stack of the coordination machine that might one day outcompete Empire. I don't think the world sucks. I think Empire has done a fantastic job at being a coordination machine, in my personal opinion. I mean, all you have to do is just study 20th century history and say, like, whoa, that shit was sucked.
No, it's not an easy task. It's not perfect right now. It could be way worse.
I'm optimistic. Maybe because I was born very, 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 very in a hard situation, and in my journey, I was afforded more optimistic perspectives. But what I think is important about this question and doing a little bit of shadow work and inviting the demons in is because that energy is then the fuel that allows us to face improbable odds to do the work that we do. So next question I wanted to ask is how you transform like fear into tenacity in your personal journey.
I think, so I'm definitely not as afraid as I used to be anymore. I think personally I worked on that. I think it's definitely a driver to be very, very specific about all the pessimistic scenarios that you can imagine, or even, I write them down, like every now and then I just like write down all the things that can go wrong, all the things that I would like to see in myself and my environment, and then that offers like a trajectory. The harder part is obviously like starting with that. And by the way, like design sprints also work that way. You just do like your long-term goal, and then you do like what are the things that can go wrong, and that really motivates people to work on stuff. I don't think that fear, like giving into the fear, is useful, and kind of crawling back. I don't necessarily do that. Yeah, it's hard. It's like,
yeah, I heard a couple of practices I can underscore here. Actually defining and describing the failure scenarios, sitting and facing it, putting a mirror to it in some form of observation strategy. In the case of Andre, that is like kind of like a journaling thing, but you can pick your own, and then actively describing paths out of those scenarios. Cool. That's kind of things I'm trying to harvest. I never believed that the intelligence is actually on stage. I think the intelligence is always over there, and I'm just trying to get that activated. So feel free to share like practical steps you take, maybe even daily things you do.
cold showers.
Cold showers.
Yeah. Every single day, do something that you hate. Work out, move your body, eat healthy. Yeah.
Told you, appropriate. Very adequate guy.
Sleep.
Super
Three
normal.
things: sleep, nutrition, exercise. Like that's the basics. Get those right first, and then you think about other stuff.
Yeah, it's true. I know that I'm not feeling good when I'm not doing those things, and it's just, but what was the question? What's our personal routine
It's all right,
for,
the question,
for happiness?
I'll restate the question. It looks like I don't remember, but I do. How do you get those doomsday sensations that we might want to wrap as fear and convert them into tenacity to face improbable odds?
I mean, I think it's good to be recognizing like all the dystopias, but also having a vision for what more utopian systems can look like. So I think it's not about like full utopian thinking or full dystopian thinking, but like a balance of both, a balance of recognizing, you know, the dystopian aspects of the world society, recognizing the good aspects, but recognizing like what are the things we want to transform, and what's the path to get there. So, you know, like world building, sci-fi, I feel like those are nice things that can be like fun to engage in and just like explore what can happen or which could be a good or bad outcome.
I don't think I turn fear into tenacity. I just keep going even though I'm afraid, and eventually it calluses. So
Eventually what?
it turns into callous, like
Like a callus. Okay. good.
Yeah, that's like if you're afraid and you gotta do it afraid. And
Do it afraid. Cool.
yeah.
And so I feel like we have now standing in between us a possible sensation of utopian visions. I wouldn't say, knowing the activities you guys go through daily, I wouldn't characterize you as pessimistic people at all, or else you are in a serious dissociative state. So without trying to define that utopia, what are components of human behavior, components of incentive mechanisms, emergent incentive mechanisms that stand in the way of your particular utopia? What is the Molochian form you're currently fighting? Can be also practical, can be about your current project, doesn't have to be.
I think in general, it's like the illusion of knowledge in most people that they think that they know stuff, but it's just not, because knowledge is constantly evolving as we do things. It's kind of, you know, you have information and then you have like your work, and then it's like you produce new information by working, and you can do new work if you have new information. That's kind of the driver. That's how I see it. And I think that most people think that knowledge is something that just exists, and then it's like you try to help them and they're like, no, I know better. It's just a very slow process of how humans change. It's not to blame anyone, it's just, I mean, I think we all share that kind of way. We always seek comfort. It's going to take a while till we get like comfortable with uncertainty and discomfort. Yeah.
Sorry, I thought we were going to talk about wild DAO ideas. I'm like, now I have to think of like my DAO life. And so what are some current mechanisms that I'm battling?
What stands in the way between you and your wildest DAO ideas becoming true?
I mean, I wanted to create a DAO in 2017, but I haven't even created it yet. I've just been part of DAOs, so there's been this like how you actually fundraise for a DAO in a way that's aligned with like your principles, and I've felt it's just been kind of challenging and scary. You're like, oh, SEC, you know, it's just like all this stuff that stands in the way of trying to actually attempt like your real vision of what a DAO should be. I think that's just like fucked up. So yeah, five years later, no DAO has been created yet, but I'm hoping it'll finally happen this year with Black Sky DAO. So I think that'll be like 5 years of learnings, and we're gonna try an alternative fundraising mechanism for it that will be, you know, a little bit different than what has happened so far, and I just kind of hope it works. That would be nice.
Can I ask just a real quick clarifying question? Why did you want to fundraise? Why do you think that fundraising was necessary for your DAO?
Well, I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like I haven't. It's been 5 years of trying to work on it in different ways without funds.
What was your intention in the beginning? Like, why did you want to fund?
Oh, to fund like a space mission.
Yeah, it's sort of like
you need a lot of money. So yeah, MoonDAO, it launched on Juicebox, and I was like, oh wow, like there's a decentralized space agency that was created, and they just went for it. They were just like, fuck it, we're just launching a token. And I was like, wow, I did not have that tenacity to just be like, fuck it, here's a token.
And just Box
So he represents the fuck it on the
Box wasn't there yet. Like,
So I try to fundraise for the Daoist via very small contributions from many players for sponsorships with no promises of future return, which is a tough one. And he's just like, fuck it, man. Just make a juice box thing and let people give you money for nothing. And I'm like, I don't wanna. So I definitely totally understand your.
Yeah, it's very like, there's parts of me that one day I'm just like, fuck it, yeah, I'm just gonna drop a token. And others where I'm like, no, like I can't do that. And like, it's like this long battle over the past 5 years, I would say.
Yeah, and so tell us what we should do.
I don't want to be too much of a shiller. But you can just launch the raise and not give the tokens out, just like keep them in contract for future launch. Well,
You can do it. It's fine. It's fine. We're getting. So this has been a warm up. Okay.
But I
so
feel like if you do that, you like really want just random people that bought your token to govern your DAO. Whereas like I don't really want that.
oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that connects a bit of what's my Moloch thing. It's like being able to accept that the DAOs that I've tried to build are not gonna do whatever I want. Like in JustBox we're always launching new stuff, and so people have projects they come on, and we'll help them like with their governances, their communities, think of how they'll do it. And in the end, once it's out, like we have no control. Like, okay, we put it out, that's our idea. If I don't like where it goes, I'll fork it, I'll start it again, I'll do another one, like, but I'll lose control. At the starting point is I say like, oh, here's the tokens, let's get funds, let's do this thing. And everyone gets together, like, unless like I hold a percentage of the original amount, but like normally in JuiceBox we don't do that. At least for JuiceBox DAO we didn't, and we just roll out and see where the community takes us. I think what's like the mechanism I have to go through to get to the DAO I want to like try more. I'm on the mentality of try more times. But I've been here for a very short period, so it's my way to
I think we have
learn fast.
Very wild ideas already here in the center that I'm going to try to underscore for you guys. One very, very wild, world-changing idea, self-care, right? Then acknowledging your ignorance, right? And another wild idea, having the patience and time to follow your inner moral compass while setting the initial conditions of a decentralized group, not just doing whatever everybody else is doing, right? I was very impressed, proud, and terrified at the same time when I watched the talk from the Black Leaders DAO. Because they know everything that's happening, they took every single trend, they started 3 DAOs that are very, very, very needed, but it was done in a way that I want to talk to all of anybody, Black Leaders DAO, come talk to me, please, let's get in residency, I want to talk to you, because it felt, from my knowledge of social elastics and how what it takes to do things in community, it felt too fast, too clean, too polished, rehearsed, and not turgid with the life force that contains within it the nature of warring polarities. It was too well worked out. I sniffed something, and I want to find out if I'm wrong or right. Well, cool. And then what you said, which is the capacity to relinquish control once initial conditions have been met, and to be fine with it, to release the egregore. These are 3 incredibly wild ideas about DAOs. Thank you for indulging my facilitator way of getting there. Now let's move on. Let's be more practical, Stellar. I don't want you to feel like you wasted your time here.
I'm not wasting my time. No, I think that the last thing you said was great as far as, it's also something I'm trying to think more about, like in launching a DAO, like how do we launch them in different ways? And there's one thing that I want to try to write a little bit more on, because, you know, we're seeing these trends of speed run DAOs, but what if you had like a DAO, but there was more like speed run governance? So, because like for me, where I'm like, oh, I don't want just like random people, because if it's like if you feel like the DAO you want to create is like your life's mission, it's like you want to be very conscious for how that's governed. But if you detach that a little bit, you're like, this isn't my life's mission, but this is a governance experiment for like a year or something. Then I feel you can like let go a bit and not feel like, oh no, it's just going to be.
I definitely second that statement. I think the Daoist as a project is the Daoist because the DAOs are meant to come and go. and the Daoist is what stays. And also the fuzzy edges of a DAO, we should make them ever more fuzzy.
Yeah.
They are temporary aggregations of a meme filter into an action mechanics that hopefully controls some resource.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't, like one of the things that causes all the doomsday scenarios that we are so afraid of is the game theoretical need for things that have a name to try to remain the way they are. And all the strategies they have to engage with the neighboring thing that has a name because they all both want the thing that is in the middle. So fuzzy membranes allows for bonobo-like joyful interaction and sharing of the cosmic gifts. And the problem is when you have to draw a line that is discrete, that's when you start buying guns, right? And these are metaphors, but we're doing this inside ourselves with what persona components of ours we want to uplift or kind of hide, right? Or push down. I don't know if that's still happening, but Stellar is the delegate of a very important person on a very big DAO. So seeing the depth of thought that you're bringing to every moral choice you make makes me feel less, like, safer, right? So that's really cool to see. And now, let's do what the panel was named after. If you could do whatever with infinite resources in terms of DAO stuff, what is the wild idea that we need next? I've already took ZK and privacy. You need to think of something else.
I mean, I think we could touch upon anonymous DAOs for a little bit. That's definitely one of the things I'm working on next, and I think it is a very wild idea because it does not exist, so it will sprout up and hopefully it will spread into the wild in some ways. But yeah, there are a lot of things that can be scary to people when it comes to anonymous DAOs. I don't have to talk about those today, but I think that thinking of how they can actually be beneficial would be, nice and important too, because laws are just different all around the world. It's like, you see people in China or whatever using VPNs to get access to the internet. So I think anonymous DAOs, they do have that more liberatory aspect for people that are in societies where they can't even create organizations or businesses easily. So I think that I'm curious to see where it will go, because it might also be something that starts to be heavily regulated in different ways, and it will be basically a challenge. But that's sort of part of the DarkFi thesis, is DarkFi will emerge when there are stronger regulations.
I like the thread that is born here, because then let's say that this happened. So now we embark in a utopian vision where, hopefully not too far away, we have anonymous, Sybil resistant, which is important to say, coordination machines that control funds. How does it affect your practice and your practice? Right? Because now you're launching those DAOs and their tokens and stuff, and there's no one to be held accountable. We cannot find them. And you are being hired by them to help design the tooling and the interfaces and the UX strategies and the launch campaigns. Do you think that they're going to be more using authority arguments to say, I know what you should do, or do you think they're going to do it less? Do you think, how does it change your approach to community?
And I can give one example for an anonymous DAO. So say people decided to come together as a DAO to elect the next US president who would give a pardon to Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, and Virgil Griffith. So it's kind of like a cypherpunk president. So it would be important for these people funding this campaign to have anonymity, right? Because you have the entire state against you not wanting this to happen. So would that be able to be launched on Juicebox, for example? How would people be protected? What would happen if it actually gets very close to this cypherpunk president having awareness?
What we could launch is the cypherpunk president now, and then use the money to fund ZK research.
We'd have to see in the Assange DAO, we did raised a significant amount of money.
45 million?
Yeah, so it raised like
55 million.
yeah, like 55 million at the time. So it's like if there was a DAO that was created that raised just 55 million for Assange, like imagine how much you can raise for a president that's going to pardon Assange, Snowden, and Virgil Griffith. Like probably over 100 million, probably maybe 200 million, maybe.
Can we cancel the panel and start the pitch deck? Because I think
Oh, let's do it. I can spin up the project real quick if you guys
Oh, and
want.
sorry, no, Ross Ulbricht, sorry. So Ross, Snowden,
then we just
Assange,
lost
Virgil.
72 million.
Yeah.
They're coming to get us in 3, 2, 1, burst through the doors. Well, I don't know how the anonymity on that works on the juice box side, because in the end, like you're interacting with contracts on the chain, like the anonymity, it ends up being on the individual side, right?
But I'm saying, like, would Juicebox even want that on their platform, or do we actually just need truly different tooling for this?
I do.
Build a ZK juice box where the state itself doesn't know who the juice box team is.
Yeah.
It's a completely renewed.
But there's still a front end. There's still a front end that's hosted. Is there a company or?
Our front end is done by another DAO. Like Juicebox would build the
nice.
protocol, then PillDAO, that's a sub-DAO inside the ecosystem.
That's cool.
So everyone can build another front end for the product. We
Nice.
focus on the protocol.
Yeah,
That's
so he
great.
made me
That's great.
swallow. He made me swallow all the criticism I had. I just realized that they got to the DAOs all the way down sub-DAO state without actually knowing any of the.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, like branding, metaverse architecture, community, front end, it's like all different DAOs inside the ecosystem using the same protocol to exchange money and tokens between themselves to work together. But yeah, it probably, no, definitely you can get to someone. Like if you're the American government and you want to get to someone at the Juicebox DAO, I mean, there's a camera right there. That's, would I like to do that raising for a government campaign in the US and do that kind of stuff? Yeah, I'd love to see that happen and be part of that. How does it work like in relation to the Juicebox team? I'm not so sure. Like it gets into legal and how good can you hide yourself behind a computer. I'm not good not in the hiding part nor in the legal part, so I wouldn't be the one to know exactly how to go that way. But I'd love to see it happen, help it happen.
Yeah, I'm on UpSec disaster as well. I wanted to change my name to Elko. And what happened is Felipe Duarte Dorif still takes back to me, and my friends don't know who I am anymore. That was what I achieved with my attempt. I want to do a warmness check with the crowd. Like, is this making sense? Is this like I kinda, or I don't understand anything? Okay, cool. I didn't even get that many hands up. But guys, do we have microphones around the crowd if you guys want to ask some questions? Cool. So we're going to keep talking, but then somebody interrupts us. Okay, that's the game. Somebody just interrupts us. How are you feeling with this direction? Do you want to coordinate towards changing the president of a country you don't even go there that often? Or?
Is he actually alive?
Who?
Well,
No, Abe died.
well, I mean,
I'm sorry, guys.
you read the news. Okay. Well, I mean, it's tricky. I don't think that there's a conscious kind of decision or like a prediction, because I think that generally things evolve always together. So I don't know if there's going to be a possibility for something like that. I've worked with anonymous teams, and it was always like, you know, if I think that it's a good project, then I would do that, and if not, then I would say no, and kind of stick to. And I mean, our team also always sticks to their values. I think that anonymity, like I don't know if that was generally the context of that conversation. Like, of course, you can do like you can go into like dystopian scenarios with anonymity and tools. Especially zero-knowledge tools, but I also think that they have a huge benefit. I had an interview with one of the leading climate scientists in the UK, Tim Palmer, a couple of years ago, and I asked him, like, what do you see as like the problems of like why are we not addressing that? And he's basically saying that, well, there's huge competition in climate science. There's no central point of there's like no central what do you call it? Critical massive resources that can be allocated. And there's like, I mean, the competition is also like across different countries. So you can't, like, if people put their name on a paper, then they basically lose their reputation if they work on something that someone else doesn't like, or if it competes with their grant proposal. Like, it's the entire like grant climate research system is completely fucked. But if we if you have tools of like anonymous people working together, organizing as a DAO, then you dissolve these issues in some ways, and you can still get people to work together on something that's useful, that everybody thinks is great, but without the kind of legal challenges.
Well, I think anonymity goes a long way in there, but there's like also a power that lies in culture, right? There's some stuff that of course you can drive to that doing it anonymously, but it's technologically hard to actually manage anonymity. You need to be talking about a group that's only tech-focused people that know what they're doing or that have very good support. If I have infinite resources for do something, like I said, and those resources are very experienced, very capable of people that know well how to get everyone in a DAO that's going massively like to the thousands to do it anonymously, that's infinite resources are people that I need. It's not going to be a video, not a course, not a ready computer or machine or a Linux distro that you run into your machine easily and now you're anon. People don't have that capability. So I think the way we go for big DAOs is not necessarily like, okay, you might want to hide when you're a leader on a point and another, living in a country that's going to like completely ruin your life if they find that it's you. But most people, if you want this to scale, will not be anonymous. So it has to be the resilience, like the reason why I can trust I'm here is because I'm changing culture politically enough to advance. I don't know, I've been in politics before crypto for like some years, and my vision for like, my reason for joining crypto was DAOs, because like, okay, politics, it's just like not happening. I'm trying, it doesn't change things. Oh, here's a new way to coordinate people that might. And I think like the power in changing culture through like evolving DAOs to very basic things. It doesn't have to be a fully real DAO. Oh, it's like this one or that model, the real what's an actual DAO. But get the concept of that. Start making it happen for basic things on daily life. Make it better for people to organize themselves through DAOs than just not. Oh. And then you get to a point where you get to it being a macro possibility. Because you start doing the very micro ones for things you don't need to be anonymous. Like that, I don't know, the co-op that takes the public garden in my neighborhood. Let's like,
yeah, I mean, I think that within like a new framework for building anonymous DAOs, you would also be able to have selective disclosure, because different organizations might not need to make every element of it private, so you can decide which elements actually make sense to keep private versus public. You know, just like in corporations today, if you work for a company, everyone doesn't know like exactly how much you make, when you're getting paid, like all these details that just become so much more transparent in DAOs today. But it's like, is that full transparency really necessary? Is that actually going to move us into like a positive direction of the future, or should we actually just, you know, reclaim some of the privacy that we do that we do get from working for like a private company, and have that within DAOs too? But then you decide when it makes sense to have something public, similar to like how, you know, nonprofits have a lot of their financials public. It's like every DAO use case is not necessarily like that. It's like, yeah, in the community we do want to do a lot of commons development, and those would be like important use cases, but that's not really the only use case for DAOs or what's like important for the world.
Quick question. When you're looking at tokenized DAOs, there's the obvious problem of pay for influence. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I can, but I don't know if the camera.
There's the obvious problem of pay for influence in DAOs, right? Like if it's tokenized, how can we keep large capitalized actors from subtly subverting the goals and the tactics of the DAO? You know, ExxonMobil going into climate change DAOs, for example. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so the design,
A little late.
best moment ever.
so the question is how to avoid state level or large corporate actors to using capital might to subvert the sovereign state of decision making in a DAO. And right, this is the design space here is huge. I think what she brought up now tickled my imagination in an interesting way, which is the selective disclosure capability. So what I really truly think that you are defined by what you track. And now you've added, like, you can only track what you show. So it would be a completely different Twitter if there was no follower count and you never knew who wrote what. But what was written was there, and you could actually have sequential recursive discourse that builds towards consensus and understanding. Maybe you would only see that it's the same person in a thread, but then in another thread you don't actually know that it's that same other person. So the design space for the types of platforms that are becoming enabled when you start to actually take information out is amazing. And also what you're saying, well, besides the obvious of not tokenizing your decision making and not like, whatever's trackable will be gamed. That was a lot in the panel yesterday that I hosted with the Good Hearts Law thing, if you guys want to watch. But we have a person who's actually getting out of bed every day here to design systems like this. How would you?
Well, I think, I mean, I think it's a very, like, the model that stakeholders can influence what's happening with like a critical mass of resources is kind of simple. I think that realistically, it's a bit too simple for complex organizations and complex systems. The way I would approach it is like more like, or the way I see these things is more like you look at what humans actually want and go for like consent-based governance first, so that there is conversation, there is an agreement on certain topics in like talking to each other, and only then you reach like, well, agreement on how resources should be distributed. The thing is that I think is also like, that is or should be tied to your reputation and your contribution of labor to the organization rather than the financial wealth. So the system that I'm kind of working on, for example, is like, first of all, you gather reputation as you do work. Like, here's the thing, here's the proof that you've done something. That is, first of all, qualitative, so other people can see it, but you can also quantify it in a way that you say, like, okay, this is your skill now, this is your role. Okay, we can assign that role a very particular voting weight because we think that you can make much better decisions, or like your role, your experience can make much better decisions than someone else. You can do that with tokens. You can say like, okay, this is like an X amount of tokens for that role, X amount of tokens for that role. So I think that's like probably one.
Can I catch the trade-offs of the situation?
Yeah, please.
So let's say we have a dark DAO in which the pseudonymous existence of the voter is known, but the vote is not known. And then Axon could, with one smart employee with a bag of cash, actually go and bribe the voters, and unsure of the success of the bribing campaign, they could actually sway the outcome. Or we have a situation like the Solend situation, which is it's actually an emergent governance capture with small amount of funds that causes a much bigger decision to be made, right? This is what happens in democracy all of the time, right? I don't know the numbers anymore, but I read a paper that calculates the ROI of lobbying. It's insane. It's like you spend $5 million to make billions on the other end. As long as you know what type of policy you're influencing and you have mapped out the constellation of stakeholders and the probable outcomes, and then you start to get your fingers into writing the proposals, it's insane. And I think those maybe the panel that we should make next is like wild worries in DAOs, like the shit that we should be afraid of. But that's a really great question. And because the DAO is just a fictional membrane of a group of agents that are connected to several other things.
Yeah, and also just like one thing I wanted to add to that is like policy is still important. Like even though like I always see it like this, we are in an economy in which all the things are kind of falling apart, but still, like all the structures that are existing, they're going to keep existing. They're just going to be like done, like implemented in a different way. It's like, do you have a LAN cable or do you have Wi-Fi? Well, the internet communication is still there. It's just the technology is slightly different. So I think that policy and like like legal restrictions, they still have to be in place in order to make to keep people from making decisions that are not good for the collective. But yeah, I don't know how that will.
Unless we're talking about a DAO that owns like some private property or legally bound physical goods, I'd say that if you have a proper reputation system to balance, even if you're bribed out of that, the cost of bribe, if you're having a co-managed treasury, you have your tokens, you can exit, like if you have a rage quit mechanic for that. If anyone tries to buy in out of up to the point of power where they can solely choose where you're going, rage quit and fork the shit.
But in the dark DAO, you wouldn't know that it happened. That's what I'm trying to say. Like the briber doesn't know. It's technologically encrypted. You cannot know who voted. What the vote. You know who voted, but you don't know the vote. And then if they're getting bribed and they're uncoordinated, prisoner's dilemma, they're uncoordinated, they're getting bribed, the briber entity will only know if the outcome was positive or not. They know to which to which percentage they're able to influence. If they had, like, let's say, everybody expected this to not pass by a margin of 95 to 5%, then there's a bribing campaign, and still doesn't pass, but now you have 45%, right? We wouldn't be able to tell who got bribed and which bribes worked, etc., ever. And so there's no reputational damage for accepting the bribe, and that changes the game theoretical equilibrium of the system. So we're going to have, over the next 15 years, to ask and produce knowledge and prototypes around all of those questions. My wild idea would be that we had transparent budget spending for governance. No, for governments, right?
I think for everything.
For everything.
Yeah.
Always.
I mean, if you want to.
So you want everybody to see your credit card purchases.
Well, I mean, personally, yeah. Well, you have that on blockchain. It's my choice of how I connect that to my identity, but it is public, and I think the same goes for organizations.
How many wallets do you control currently?
I don't know. I have like 5 or 6 or so.
Okay, so you are indeed a cutie pie.
Huh?
People control hundreds of wallets, and they take incredible measures to obfuscate their fund routing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Routines, behaviors.
Right.
Right. So.
Hi, can I interrupt?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, I was just wondering, I think a lot of time in this space we like to talk about privacy, but as someone who comes from a country that suffers from terrorism, for example, or all the things that are being done, I think I can say that I don't like the surveillance, but also I wouldn't want to live in a society where there isn't any surveillance. And just kind of, just to give that balance and maybe to say, you know, there are threats to our lives, or there are people, networks. I don't need to tell you about networks that are harming children or harming that we need to work against. And I'm just wondering how does that, like how to give some balance into this conversation about privacy and what matters to us if we're talking about co-creating the future society that we want.
Security, freedom, trade-offs, go.
I'm a transparency advocate. Like the only thing that stops full transparency for everything making sense is because we're assholes to each other. And that's the biggest shit. We treat, like, from governments to people, like there's no problem, no given problem except how people interact with each other to not having transparency. So it's about telling how far you want to go, not having it given for everyone. You have to be you have to do this anonymously or not anonymously.
Yeah, but you're going to force me to give a very radical example of full transparency, everything. What if every time you ever had sex or masturbated, it was online, on camera for everyone to see, every single time? Just
People, dude, I might enjoyed it.
No, yeah.
That doesn't really-
I asked you that question because I was afraid that might be the answer.
Like, if people are not judging me for this, if there's no morals that are going against this, if I'm not going to get repressed on top of that, I don't care.
Ideally, yes, but I think it's still important to indulge the conversation that there are trade-offs and we need to find an ideal channel between, and we all need to have ideas around it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that like we have all been conditioned, or men, like sort of like the play that like, you know, the governments and the states want to have is, oh, privacy, no, you can't have full privacy because we're protecting you. But I think that like surveillance as like a protective or self-defense measure for like society or people who are being harmed, I think it's not like a real solution. It's like a temporary thing that's not going to like transform actually how do we get rid of child trafficking, or how do we actually really like figure out what is causing that, which, you know, it'll probably always go down to like economics, you know, people not having the resources, so that's why they are just selling children, or, you know, like having like, you know, so I think it's more like we have to think not from like we need surveillance because there are all these harmful things happening in the world and I don't know how to change it otherwise, and actually think how do we change it otherwise without surveillance being the solution, because that is always what the states are going to want, is more surveillance, and we know that those powers will be abused and they will not just be put to use for solving like child trafficking. So that's like the double-edged sword of all of this. It's like, yes, with any new technology, there can be so many like liberating effects, but through those liberating effects, yes, people that are not using it in nice ways can also do bad things, but that's just kind of how things are going to progress. And I think the solution to that is not solution, but how do we actually like contribute towards society moving into a direction where like people aren't so poor and having humans in slavery as a way to survive or gain power.
No, definitely we have like concrete conditions that are given that just make it not something viable. I do not think transparency changes that kind of stuff, but neither
It's like technological surveillance. It's like a new thing. It's like only existed in the last 50 years. Human society has existed and like functioned in different ways before surveillance. So why does it need to be applied?
It doesn't, but it's only surveillance if it's used in bad faith. Else it's just communication. It's not, surveillance is just abuse of communication in the case, through the state or through power, but it is communication. How you use it, like, it's not surveillance as a given. The tooling, the way things work. That's how it's used.
Sorry, I have a question, just to like interject.
Perfect.
For Zieg, sorry if that's a mispronunciation of your name.
No problem.
But you said that transparency, that you're pro-transparency because you think that people should just not be assholes to each other. So I'm just curious, like, you know, but what if people are assholes to each other?
Oh yeah, that's why we should not do it right now. Like we should not, like, it's a horizon that I think it makes sense to walk towards. I would not think it's safe to be responsible, to be too transparent about everything right now. Anonymity is needed because people are assholes. But
I think,
I'm an
can I
idealist.
just sophisticate the concept of assholes to each other and oppression? There's no takeable step towards a state where people are not assholes to each other from an unlevel playing field. And the idea of a leveled playing field is just preposterous unless you start a society on a petri dish. And so the awareness of the continuum speech that I gave yesterday is profoundly necessary. Like, we are coming from a state of assholeness, and it's not a linear walk towards non-assholeness. Do you want to give us our closing statements?
Can I actually ask a quick question, Felipe or Alco?
Yes.
Thank you. So I kind of, to ring it back to whoever asked the question over here, kind of like an equilibrium state, right? How can we navigate these two kind of polarities, right? Of ultra privacy versus full transparency. And I think one way we're getting closer to that, maybe, is through attestations and through being able to prove interactions are taking place, and basically being able to like weed out the bad actors through positive sum interactions. And
The problem is defining what good means.
right.
Yeah.
Do you want to give us a?
I mean, yeah, I totally agree as well. I don't think there's like positive and negative is super subjective, so you can't have an objective view on that. In terms of privacy, I think both are important. Privacy, but also self-governed privacy, especially when your life can be in danger. But transparency that allows you access to data to see and design kind of policy. It's complicated. It's very complex.
We're out of time, but I would say thank you for all of you to stay to the end. It was a privilege to hold space for such hard problems and ideas. And the wildest idea I can put out for you DAOists out there is to keep trying. Because you're not, these are the problems I was talking about yesterday. They have no set of final solutions. And thank you for your patience, guys, for the weird questions.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks for listening.